starting on the pole for race 4 of the 2013 HARC Pro Series season would be the 8th car of Brock McMahon. On his outside would be the 22 of Jacob Young. Immediately on the inside, James Davis would make the pass and take the lead. A few laps later, Ron Young dived way too hard into the 3rd and 4th turn, clipped Leah Walker, and then slid down the track in front of a few others. This would bring out our first caution. James Davis would lead the field back to the green flag, with Richard Trelinsky right on his bumper. About a lap and a half later, Richard Trelinsky would get to the inside of James Davis and take the lead. Robert Moss would soon follow. About a lap later, James Davis would get a huge run on the outside and make the identical pass. Meanwhile, Luke Walker came in for an unscheduled pit stop. A lap later, Leah Walker would do the same. As Richard Trelinsky held the lead, we had a tremendous battle for second place with Shrimp Engrits, Jacob Young, James Davis, Robert Moss, Kyle Polaniti, and Andreas Allen all battling it out. It seems that many cars are having trouble early on here, as we have about 5 cars a lap down. Meanwhile, Shrimp Engrits is taking the lead from Richard Trelinsky. A few laps later, in the tense battle for 8th place, Robert Moss spun out Jacob Young, and he went right into the pit lane. Under this caution, many drivers, such as Nicholas Detour here, made their pit stops, but, well, it wasn't exactly a clean race off pit road, as many drivers just bumped each other right out of the way. Shrimp Engrits would lead the field back to the green flag. Stephen Henhock in front of her, and all the cars in the left-hand lane are a lap down or trying to get their lap back. Down into turn 3, the same lap, we have a nutty 3 and 4 wide battle with lap cars just trying to get their laps back, as Shrimp Engrits in the 77 is desperately trying to get back around them. Connor Breton and Robert Moss would use a few lap cars as picks to get around Shrimp Engrits. Second place car, Robert Moss, would dive around Connor Breton and using Luke Walker as a pick there, and he would take the lead. A couple of laps later though, Connor Breton would retake the lead. 4-wide racing isn't really safe at any racetrack, let alone a short track. Pichu London, Ron Young, and Andreas Allen just proved that. Pichu London slid down the track right in front of Spencer Fullerton, and then Zachary Brown ARCA braked into him. Let's go on board with Spencer Fullerton through the chaos. Just had nowhere to go, and then he just got hit by Zachary Brown. Robert Moss was able to get by every car that was a lap down, and, well, no one got their laps back. On the restart, Robert Moss would lead with championship leader Leah Walker on his inside. Lap cars would again block the leaders, as we have 3 and 4 wide battles going on back there. Coming through turns 3 and 4, Ron Young got up into the wall and then got hit by Andreas Allen exiting, which eventually resulted in Gary Tang getting spun. Meanwhile, Zach Harvick and Stephen Hennock would get their laps back as they beat leader Robert Moss to the line. Robert Moss would once again lead on the restart with the gaggle of off-the-lead lap cars on his inside. However, this time he would be able to clear them. Coming through turns 3 and 4, Brock McMahon got turned along with Billy Bonarenko, and then everyone just kind of stacked up behind them. For the 4th time this race, Robert Moss would lead the field back to the green flag. Robert Moss and James Bond would quickly negotiate lap traffic and would stay 1st and 2nd. Damir Bejanoff would get into the turn way too hard, and Gary Tang would be spun out, and Mark Nutt would just clobber Damir Bejanoff in the driver's side door. I even need to say it, Robert Moss would lead them back to the green flag. Just 1 lap later, Bend Over would spin out Andreas Allen, and he would slide up into the wall. Alex Tanker did an amazing job of avoiding that wreck, but then Peter Saviano didn't. Oh, and neither did Stephen Henhock. That was a huge hit for an Andreas Allen. Wow. Let's go on board with Andreas here. He just gets spun, hits the outside wall, and then just has no time to react before getting hit by Peter Saviano and almost gets flipped over, and then he gets clobbered by Stephen Henhoff. Meanwhile, further up in the field, James Davis was spun out by Luke Walker right into the pit lane, and James Davis would get into the outside of the pit wall and just come to a stop on his driver's side window. The HARC officials thought about penalizing Luke Walker for this horrendous move, but since he went a lap down fixing damage anyway, they decided that there was no need to. Like always, Robert Moss would lead them back to the green flag. Coming out of turn 4, James O'Shea would get into Zach Hofschneider and turn him out into the outside wall. Then James O'Shea would slide up and hit it, and then he would get clobbered by Ilya Bondarenko. Back battling for 11th place, Alex Tanker would get into Damir Bezhanov and spun him into the outside wall. Luckily, no one else would hit him. Robert Moss would lead the field back to the green flag. Alex Tanker would drive way too hard into the corner, and another stack-up wreck would occur. Robert Moss would lead the field back to the green flag with just 11 laps to go. 4-wide racing is the cause of yet another accident as Brock McMahon gets turned into the inside wall by Eric Cesar. They both come back up the track, collecting Shrimp Engridge, Dixie Normus, and Zach Harvick. Coming down the backstretch, Nicholas Detour would be the first one to get to the inside of Robert Moss for a very long time, but Robert Moss would have the edge on the outside and lead the field to the caution flag. For the final time, with just 4 laps to go, Robert Moss would lead the field to the restart. Cars off the lead lap would not be on the inside. A lap and a half later, Nicholas Detour, with some help from Kyle Pulanini, would get around Robert Moss. Robert Moss would pull a crossover move the next lap. Nicholas Detour and Kyle Pulanini battled for second on the last lap, leaving Robert Moss to come off the final turn here and take the checkered flag for his first ever HARC Series victory. Kyle Pulanini would come across second, Nicholas Detour third, Jacob Young fourth, and Bend over fifth.